Caitlin Clark just traded in her basketball for a camera, and the entire sports world lost its mind. On Wednesday night, while the Indiana Pacers hosted the Los Angeles Lakers at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet was not sitting courtside as a spectator. She was not in the luxury box. She was sitting in a photographer's chair, professional camera in hand, shooting the game like a seasoned lensman. And the image that set the internet on fire? Caitlin Clark, grinning from ear to ear, snapping photos of LeBron James as he argued with the referees. You cannot script this stuff. So today, let's talk about why this one moment says so much more than people realize about where Caitlin Clark is right now, where women's basketball is heading, and why the WNBA itself felt the need to react. Let's set the stage here, because this story doesn't land the way it should unless you understand the full timeline. Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA in 2024 as the #1 overall pick. She went to the Indiana Fever, and her rookie season was nothing short of historic. She averaged 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. She set the WNBA's single-season record with 337 assists. She set the rookie record for points with 769 and three-pointers with 122. She became the first WNBA rookie to record a triple-double, and then she did it again. She was named the unanimous Associated Press Rookie of the Year. She finished in the top 20 across all 5 major statistical categories. It was one of the most electrifying debut seasons the league had ever seen. Then came 2025, and everything changed. Clark suffered a left groin injury early in the season, returned for 6 games, and then suffered a right groin injury on July 15 against the Connecticut Sun. That second injury ended her season after only 13 appearances. She missed the last 19 games. She watched from the sideline as the Fever, and probably, went on a playoff run without her all the way to the WNBA semifinals, where they fell to the Las Vegas Aces. For someone who had been at the center of every conversation about women's basketball for 2 straight years, sitting on the sideline in street clothes for months was a completely different kind of experience. It took 8 months of rehabilitation before she returned to the court, and that return came in March 2026 with Team USA at the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where she averaged 11.6 points and a tournament-best 6.4 assists, shooting 52.9% from the field and 40% from 3. She was named tournament MVP. That was the basketball world exhaling. She was back. So here we are, less than 2 weeks after that tournament performance, and Clark shows up to the Lakers-Pacers game not as a fan, not as a player rehabbing on the sideline, but as a guest photographer. The Pacers gave her a custom photo chair with her name on it. She was issued credentials. She was positioned courtside with a professional camera, doing the job for real. And from everything that has come out since, she did it well. Professional photographer Brie Lewerke, who has covered Clark and the Fever over the past 2 seasons, called her a natural. The Fever's official account said she cooked with the photos she took. And then, there was the moment that truly went viral. During the game, which the Lakers won 137-130 behind a massive 43-point performance from Luka Doncic and 23 from LeBron James, cameras caught Clark smiling and snapping away precisely as James was having one of his animated exchanges with the referees. Arms outstretched, visibly frustrated, LeBron was in full King James mode. And there was Clark, locked in, capturing the whole thing like a courtside photojournalist who had been doing this for years. The juxtaposition was perfect. The intensity of James versus the calm delight of Clark behind the lens. After the game, Clark posted some of her work on social media. She shared a photo of James on her Instagram story with the caption, "I got to shoot the king." Then she followed it up with a full post of the photos, writing, "The King. Shot by me." That post on X reportedly generated over 1.4 million views and more than 800 comments within just 3 hours. LeBron James himself reposted Clark's photo of him to his own Instagram story, giving it his unofficial stamp of approval. When the biggest name in basketball history takes the time to share your photo of him, that tells you something about where you stand in the culture. And the WNBA noticed. The league's official Instagram account shared photos of Clark in her photographer role and wrote, "A photographer fit for a king," a play on LeBron's well-known nickname. That is the league amplifying one of its biggest stars not for a highlight reel, not for a stat line, but for something she did entirely off the court. That's a significant choice, and it's worth thinking about. Now let's talk about the reactions, because they were everywhere and they came in fast. Luka Doncic, who had just put up 43 points, was asked about Clark after the game. His initial reaction was telling. When the reporter referenced, "Caitlin Clark, the photographer," Doncic paused, clearly momentarily confused, and repeated, "The photographer?" Once the reporter clarified they meant Caitlin Clark, the WNBA player, Doncic's tone changed immediately. He said, "Oh yeah, I did see she was taking pictures. I'm a big fan for sure. I watch a lot of games. Definitely, her hooping is great to watch. For sure gotta go to one game to see her." That's an NBA superstar, in the middle of one of the best individual performances of the season, voluntarily praising a WNBA player's game and saying he wants to attend one of her games in person. A few years ago, you simply did not hear that kind of crossover praise happen organically in a post-game press conference. On social media, fans and media figures ran with the content. The analyst page covers described it as peak basketball content, writing, "Caitlin Clark photographing LeBron complaining to the refs is peak basketball content." Then accounts dedicated to LeBron highlighted the way Clark seemed to zero in the moment she saw James heading toward the officials. NBA's Sentinel shared a clip captioned, "LeBron crashing out on the refs while Caitlin Clark casually taking photos." Reports suggest the post on Reddit's NBA community gained significant traction as well, with fans calling it one of the most entertaining non-game moments of the season. This is where I want to go a little deeper, because on the surface, this is a fun, lighthearted story. A famous basketball player tries photography, does well, captures a funny moment, and everybody has a good time. But when you pull back and look at the bigger picture, there is actually a lot happening here that matters for women's basketball and for how we think about athlete branding in 2026. First, consider the timing. Clark is in a very specific window right now. She's between the FIBA qualifying tournament and the start of what will be her third WNBA season. After missing most of 2025 with injury, the anticipation for her return to the Fever is enormous. According to recent discussions, her 2026 WNBA salary is set to jump to over $527,000 under the new collective bargaining agreement, a massive increase from the roughly $78,000 she earned in previous seasons. She has one of the most lucrative endorsement portfolios in all of women's sports. Her 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike, the largest shoe deal in women's basketball history, includes a signature shoe and full apparel line scheduled to debut later in 2026. She's the face of Gatorade's new lower sugar campaign, which launched nationwide in early March with a limited edition rain-berry flavor tied to her name. In February, she attended Prada's fall-winter show at Milan Fashion Week, sitting front row alongside Olympic skier Eileen Gu, and the WNBA's official Instagram account covered that, too, sharing photos with the caption, "Caitlin Clark steps out for Milan Fashion Week." What this tells us is that Clark, whether intentionally or just by the nature of who she is and the demand that exists around her, has become something that very few WNBA players have ever been. She has become a fully cross-platform cultural figure. Basketball is her foundation. Absolutely, and everything stems from what she does on the court. But the off-court moments, the photography, the Fashion Week appearances, the brand partnerships, these are not distractions. They are extensions. And the fact that the WNBA as a league is actively promoting and celebrating these moments tells you that the league sees this as a win, not a sideshow. And here's the broader point that I think people miss when they dismiss moments like this as fluff. The economic impact of what is often called the Caitlin Clark effect has been documented extensively. Reports from NBC News in 2025 estimated that Clark's impact on the WNBA could eclipse $1 billion. Ticket sales, broadcast viewership, merchandise, and corporate sponsorship interest all spiked dramatically since she entered the league. The league's new CBA, which is raising player salaries across the board, exists in part because of the revenue growth that Clark and her fellow players have driven. When Clark shows up to a Pacers game and creates a viral moment that generates millions of views and pulls in coverage from ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Fox News, Bleacher Report, and dozens of other outlets, that is not separate from the health of women's basketball. That is a direct contribution to it. Now, I want to be balanced about this because it's important. Clark is not the only player driving interest in the WNBA. The growth of women's basketball has been a collective effort involving many incredible athletes, coaches, executives, and broadcasters. Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, Paige Buchers, and many others have played significant roles in building the audience. The league's expansion, with new franchises and better broadcast deals, is a product of many forces working together. Clark is a major part of the equation, but she's part of an equation, not the whole thing. The conversation gets unhelpful when people try to make it a zero-sum game about one player versus another. What's actually happening is much more interesting and much more positive than that. The entire pie is getting bigger, and everyone benefits. But what makes Clark's situation unique, and what this photography moment crystallizes, is her crossover reach. When she picks up a camera and photographs LeBron James, and that image goes viral, it places women's basketball in a context where it doesn't usually live. It puts it on the sports page next to the NBA. It puts it in the same conversation as the biggest names in global athletics. Luka Doncic is talking about wanting to come watch her play. LeBron is reposting her work. The WNBA is using the moment to connect its brand to the most famous basketball player alive. These crossover touchpoints create casual interest that turns into viewership, that turns into revenue, that turns into higher salaries, and better conditions for every player in the league. That's the value chain at work. There's also something worth noting about the specific nature of this moment. Clark was not just attending a game. She was creating. She was behind the camera, producing content, engaging with a different skill set, and doing it well enough to draw praise from professionals. In an era where athlete brands are increasingly built through content creation, storytelling, and personal platforms, this was a smart move. It showed personality. It showed range. It showed that Clark is not just a basketball player who does endorsements. She's someone who engages with the world in ways that feel authentic and interesting. That matters when you're trying to build a brand that lasts beyond your playing career. And at 24 years old, with a Nike signature shoe on the way and endorsement deals stacking up, Clark is clearly thinking long-term. The parallel to someone like LeBron James is actually worth exploring for a moment. James, throughout his career, has been as much a cultural figure as a basketball player. From his production company to his media ventures to his philanthropic work, he understood early that the off-court persona amplifies the on-court legacy. Clark appears to be on a similar trajectory, adapting it for a different era and a different sport but following a comparable blueprint. The WNBA itself made that comparison, however subtle, by captioning Clark's photo with a LeBron reference. It was not an accident. They're telling us how they see her place in the ecosystem. And I want to bring it back to the injury context one more time, because I think it's essential to understanding why fans are reacting the way they are. Clark missed 8 months. 8 months without competitive basketball. For someone who had been the center of gravity in women's basketball since her Iowa days, that was a long time in the wilderness. Her return at the FIBA qualifiers was important not just because she played well, which she did, but because it confirmed that the player fans fell in love with was still there. She looked healthy. She looked sharp. She was making plays. And now, in the weeks after that tournament, she's showing up at NBA games, picking up cameras, attending fashion shows, launching products with Gatorade, and generating viral moments that dominate the sports internet. The energy around her right now feels like a coiled spring. Everyone is waiting for the 2026 WNBA season to start, and every off-season appearance is another reminder of the anticipation. Fans are reacting to this moment with so much enthusiasm not just because it was funny or charming, although it was both. They're reacting because it represents what they've been waiting for. Caitlin Clark, healthy, happy, engaged, and impossible to ignore. The photography stunt at the Pacers game was a small moment in the grand scheme of things. But it captured something real about where this athlete is in her story, and why so many people are invested in what comes next. So here is the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want to hear your thoughts in the comments. As Caitlin Clark's off-court profile continues to grow, from Nike and Gatorade and Milan Fashion Week to viral photography moments with LeBron James, do you think this kind of crossover visibility is ultimately the thing that will push women's basketball into permanent mainstream status? Or does the real tipping point only come when the on-court product, the games themselves, consistently draw the kind of attention that these off-court moments generate? In other words, is it the basketball that will sustain the boom, or is it the brand? Or is the truth that you can't separate the two anymore? Let me know what you think down below. If you found this breakdown valuable, drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. There is a lot more to talk about as we get closer to the 2026 WNBA season, and trust me, you're going to want to be here for it.